Delta just trying to deliver somebody onto the point so that way they can put down a beacon and do something similar that we saw last game. But unfortunately, everybody was ready for it. I actually called out that the tank back here on B1 for TXD was pretty much alone. Somehow we blinked and there was like 5 members back there ready for that as well. So great awareness from the team as a whole. Now we turn our eyes towards C1 and C2. Again, this is a way faster game than we just saw. The score is not going to be as high. The tanks, the vehicles, they're not going to be as readily available, nor are the guided missiles. I'm sure we will not play long enough for those to actually come into full play now. So it's just going to be about how good you are here towards C1. And listen, DNI, they've got to make something happen.
We talked about the win condition of DNI when they were on the attack. It's going to be the same here for TXD. They need to set a foothold into C1, slightly easier point to capture. They need to set it essentially as their spawn point. They got to win it first. TXD know that. They know they got to push here. And DNI are going to try to hold at least for now. Just try to get to any lives, and it's not really working. We've only spent 6. We're still picking up our revives, and we're winning out on this point. And we're picking up enough score to secure some more vehicles. This tank destroyer, I can only assume, is headed straight for C1, about to muck up all the plans of DNI.
Yeah, we'll have to see how effective they can be when they are up 2-0 in the vehicles. The defense has to get something going. They did just send their only tank so far this game towards that B1 push. And now the tank destroyer, look how fast it is. This is why it is such a dangerous vehicle.
Run through everything besides those, big dog. Legacy thinks better of C1 because his team is capturing it now with boots on the ground. They're trying to swing around the backside of C2 and maybe at least cause a bit of pressure for the defense to have to concede C1 so his team can set up spawn there and move on their merry way. Now being called back into action because Chang and DG Delta picking up so many kills on the backside there, by the way. That was a lot of green in the kill feed. Red calling in another tank. GXD trying to push this advantage they have with vehicles. They're doing a pretty good job of it. That's CVVT, by the way, taking control of the vehicle, moving off of the medic, getting into a vehicle, getting active, while Legacy maintains position in the tank destroyer.
Yeah, just adding insult to injury. I'm not sure how they have the economy for so many vehicles so early on, but yeah, as Goj pointed out there, great hold on to C1. Definitely a little bit more of an investment towards this point for DNI than TXD did when they were on the defense. That being said, still a good opportunity here for TXD to go ahead and push in. There are plenty of members over here. They just got to go ahead in and win the gunfights.
See CVVT now, boots on the ground, playing aggressively onto C1. They're going to wipe just about everybody on C1 right now. Should be a nice, easy take of C1 while the defense regroups around C2. See Sarah Jin, boots on the ground. Not often do you see Sarah Jin not in a vehicle. This game has not been very long, and because of it, the defense do not have a lot of score for vehicles. A strategy that maybe we thought they were implementing because they wanted that to be the case. Now coming out back to bite them because the attack has enough score to have vehicles of their own. We need a lot more engineers from the side of the defense if they want to win this matchup. C1 easily headed now to the attackers as they set up the push for the defense. No, defense is actually going to try to retake here. It's not quite an all-in, but this is maybe a bit of a risky move. Going to try to contest here on C1. Tank sure coming in to play spoiler. That's what I thought was going to happen a moment ago, but brutal.
Yeah, I think they got to try to fight for C1, right? They've got to try to play for everything. They got to try to delay this match as long as they possibly can until they can eventually call in those vehicles. That is the big difference maker. Now that C1 has been captured.
Yikes.
They're going to set their eyes on one thing and one thing only, C2.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it didn't work, frankly. I mean, if it would have worked, it would have been nice. Could have elongated the map, but of course, dying there means you're going to respawn over at C2, which is where you want to be. So it's not the end of the world, but all momentum is on the attacking side by a giant margin. This is not reminiscent of the last map at all. What we thought was very even teams looks like very imbalanced teams. But again, DNI won the first map. They can afford to lose this.
Barely won that first map. Probably feeling a little bit lucky right now that they did, because this defense for them is just falling apart every single turn that is made. I'm taking a look at the point, right? There's just Only 2 bodies on it right now. They're just all scattered, trying to regroup. They actually don't even seemingly really care about C2. They're actually going for C1.
Yeah, they're going to go for a trade here. I like this. They just don't have enough firepower to actually compete with the push on C2. They lose if they don't go for it, but as per the usual, what does the attacking side do? They leave a vehicle on the point that they already have control over. It works almost every time. The defense can't get anything going because this tank destroyer is ripping them to shreds.
Trying to get the engineers in. If they can go ahead and take out this tank destroyer, that would be a big win. It's right now at 50 durability. It was starting to feel the pressure. Legacy decides to go ahead and retreat. On the other side of things, C2 is slowly getting lost, but there are a couple of members from the side of DNI trying to go ahead and hold on as long as they possibly can while C1 is being captured. This rooftop position is very strong behind that Allure shield, but does end up going down. The flip-flop is in. C1's in the control of the defense, but C2 is lost in exchange.
Yeah, I think this is actually a really smart move from TXT, Legacy, and that tank destroyer not to full send and all in on the hold on C1. They know they can outlast their opponents. They know they can take C2 here, trade points, try to hold C2 and retake C1, which is arguably a lot easier to retake. So may see another swap. We're finally starting to see that tug of war I always talk about on these broadcasts of a flip-flop of points until one side finally relents. This artillery strike, it looks like, is landing, by the way, directly on the heads of TXT on C2, which may give them enough breathing room to not actually full cap C2. As the defense does fully recapture C1, at least for now.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep my eyes out to see if a vehicle is ever going to get called in here for DNI. They're trying to make things happen, but just being down in firepower is hurting them so much. And honestly, TXT is doing such a good job of keeping all their vehicles alive. Sometimes they're getting pressured, right? Sometimes they're very close to losing their vehicles, but never. It just never happens.
Yeah, it doesn't happen, but also, without vehicles, DNI still holding. C2 going back to the defense. C1, they're going to flip-flop again. C1 going to be picked up by the attackers. I'll be curious to see what DNI decides to do here. Are they going to try to contest C1 or just be content about flip-flopping?
Jeez.
It looks like Dead Dog is actually marked likely C2 for a capture here. This is a smart move. They need the score desperately. We got to get bodies on the point. Actually, Dead Dog by himself is on the point capturing C2. He knows he can. The rest of his team's going to pressure C1 to keep the attack there. They're going to net a win on C2. That will net them enough score probably to call in, I think, their first vehicle.
Trying to get something going here is DNI, right? The same game plan, push towards C1 while we have C2, in case the attack does start to put pressure onto C2. Look at this. All of their efforts have been thwarted, so much so that it's pretty hard to even look around the map and see many of the green team members alive.
Here. We're out of position here. I mean, maybe they go for the retake as the attackers leave the point is what they're thinking. Maybe they're just trying to infinitely trade until they win the war of attrition. I don't love this position. If they're just winning all the gunfights, it works though. The attackers get pretty aggressive into where the respawn beacons are here on the outside of C1. That is exactly what they're doing. They're willing to take the trades here, and they're actually just straight up winning the gunfights. They are out-fragging their opponents with a little bit of extra cover. The attack get a little bit over-aggressive, and they're going to lose both points. That was a big mistake from TXT to try to chow into a much easier position to hold. Wow, DNI finding some wins, still without a vehicle.
Pretty flabbergasted at the fact that this defense is actually holding on here on the C sector. I thought that the vehicles were going to be able to give them a big edge on this attack. Yeah, sure, you know, it's kind of worked, right? C1 fell pretty early on. They've been able to capture it a couple of times, but it just keeps falling.
Yeah, they're wasting a lot of time. DNI doing a really good job with not a lot to their name. But trade after trade after trade means we're back to an even stalemate, and we're down nearly 90 lives with only C1 to show for it. DNI sets up the same line. They set up this position from inside of this area, this small little section of the city. This time the attackers are finding ground. This time the attackers are winning the gunfight. This could be the beginning of a disaster, but so many revives here. Look at all the medics coming in, picking people back up, keeping up the aggression. They want to keep the fight outside of C1. If they're able to keep the fight outside of C1, they will always have control over C2 and therefore win the war of attrition. TXD knows it though. They've got a big flanking squad coming over here on the respawn beacons on the right side. Look right here. Veronica, the hero of last map, and DG Delta trying to hold down this off angle.
Yeah. I mean, the stronghold here, right? This little compound is where DNI have kind of staked a stronghold towards, and that's why they've been able to transition over to C1 very quickly. Here we go. The score has been saved up. They called them all at the same exact time in hopes that they would not get destroyed out of the sky. One does, but they do net 2 vehicles in the process. They do have to repair them just a little bit. A lot of process to do, but the lure rocket is going to come in. If it hits, if it connects, I think it'll find the destruction. It does not.
Took them long enough. Welcome back. DNI finally with a tank. Assault vehicle stays alive, at least for a moment as well. In the meantime, though, look at the offensive line. It's pushed through C1 into the area that they were holding. Maybe an oversell on the vehicles, so now everybody swarms the point. All of green on C2, and all in here from the attack could either yield a win or maybe yield a loss if they lose their vehicles. They need to be careful while also staying extremely aggressive. TXD have a chance to put this game away right now with the way this defense is trapped on C2.
Tank is still alive all the way in the back, right? So they called in 3 vehicles, they have 1 left. One of them was lost in the sky, one of them was lost on C2. C2 is still in the hands of the defender, but look at this. Finally, the tanks are starting to get active. These guys have been playing way back in the fields, finally starting to get towards the point, but as a result, is at risk of getting destroyed. One more rocket has to connect. Please do not let this tank get away for free.
What? How did a lure rocket not finish that one up? Insane to stay alive there from Zombra. A big win for them. I gotta shout out that artillery strike. I can't understate enough how much that zoned off C2. The artillery strike landing on and around the point, forcing the infantry to seek shelter indoors. It doesn't actually net a kill, but it gave the defense enough breathing room to actually expand back out of C2, and expand back out onto the map. You can see Stacks, Artyom, the MVP squad over and over again, the Slayers, the Intraman, they have retaken C1 at least for a moment just by the guns in their hands. Impressive stuff from this roster. There's a reason they're the MVP squad over and over again. They net 200 kills just as a squad of 4 last time around, and they are the thorn in the side of TXD.
Yeah, but they're going from Slayers to trying to win out the hide-and-seek game. The tank destroyers trying to sniff them out. But look at the time that they are able to go ahead and expend for their team, right? Keep them busy. But this is a little worrisome. C1, that's been their hope. That's been what they've been kind of crutching onto. C1's no longer an option. We just saw them go down over here, and C2's under heavy attack.
Both teams calling in artillery strikes, it looks like, on C2. It's going to be utter chaos around that point. Vehicles finding a lot of value now on the backside. Zombra keeping this tank alive. Such a huge boon for this team. C2 finally reaches neutral while C1 is still in control. This is the farthest the attack has gotten, and Dead Dog knows it. We've got a team strategic beacon down. We've got urgent redeployment for the defense as well. There's going to be a lot of bodies on the point, and maybe that's good news when this guided missile lands. About to change the game, about to win the game. The defense in trouble. They're trying to find some motion onto C1 to save the day. Missile will land. Zombra goes down. The missile connects on only the commander, Dead Dog. He is out for now, but the beacon's still alive and picks up 5 respawns. Where is it? Oh, I bet it's on C1. Look at this defensive trade. So well executed, but another guided missile will land from the attack. They've been racking up the score from those vehicle operators. Defense in complete control of C1, but this missile could change the game. It's landing directly on C1. If another missile lands on C1, that point will fully collapse. Could make this a 1 capture sector point for the last 50 lives.
Amongst all the chaos, all of the vehicles have been destroyed for both sides. There's another guided missile being called in right now. If that's going to land on C1, it's going to destroy it. C2 right now is in full control of TXD. If this one lands, if they do not get on the C2, they are going to win. They're going to have a little bit of time to get on the C2, I do believe, which is why the strategic beacon does get played. Under heavy attack, it's
gone.
It is going to collapse. You can see right there, they're under time pressure now. They got to work towards C2. As you can see, the flood's trying to come in, but it's all red towards C2. They're not playing the defensive side of things. Another guided missile from Kuhn BZ is going to be landing here soon, but 2 strategic beacons being placed down on the C2 right now. The defensive side is trying to make something happen. Urgent deployment on both sides. Guided missile doesn't need to land. There we go. TXD 1-1. They even up the series.
The time crunch yet again, this time going to the opposition. All I see is relief from the side of TXD. They've been racking up the score for that very moment.
9 on the defense right there. It looked like they just fell apart. A completely different team than I feel like we saw on the attacking side just 1 game ago. Never really had a stakehold in the vehicle game, it appeared, right? They kind of tried, called in a couple, but they were seemingly saving their score for something. Maybe it was just the constant flow of artillery barrages and deployments and beacons being placed down that was required to kind of try to hold on to the defense, but TXD not making it easy.
That's one of those plays that's in the strategic playbook and have been in the strategic playbook since this has been released, that you could destroy C1. It is kind of a classic strategy. It's one that in pubs is very difficult to pull off because you're not that coordinated. But you do see it pretty often, actually. And I know D and I was thinking about it. It's just interesting when you think about this map, the way it was executed. Again, D did a really good job of trading back and forth. But this moment right here, I think, is one of the more frustrating ones. You lose one of your vehicles, and then you end up losing all of them. And I think from the defensive side, the main mistake, frankly, obviously the trade here, just unfortunate. The missiles come in, they execute a perfect plan. The real problem is that you allowed it to get to this point. We don't destroy the vehicles of the attacking side fast enough. They rack up a crazy amount of score, and then they're able to drop however many missiles that they want at the end. Still a pretty solid hold. Actually ended up being about a 130-point hold for the defensive side.